Morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Paul Simeone, and I'm the VP Medical Director for Behavioral Health at Lee. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you all here today. Just as a point of personal pride and privilege, I want to say up front that of all the community events we sponsor, this is my favorite one. And the reason it's my favorite one is going to become clear to you as we wend our way through the program. You're going to hear some quite amazing stories and what I hope is going to be really a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So as you know, organizing programs such as this is no small feat, especially considering the times that we're living in. Given this, I'd like to acknowledge those organizations, donors, and individuals without whom we could not have made this happen. First, I'd like to thank the Healthy Lee Behavioral Health Coalition, which has not only sponsored the inaugural Normal is Overrated event, but also the second and now the third annual gathering as well. We can't thank them enough for kindly providing the support, the general financial supports and operational supports that make a program like this come alive. Next, we need to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, Kids Minds Matter, which, as you know, is a great supporter of community events such as this one. As their humble emissary, I want to say how happy we are to sponsor a student-led event, which is why this is going to be so impactful. Those of you who attended the previous ones know what I'm talking about. This one is, again, going to be an amazing tour de force. And I'm really, really happy to be introducing that. We also want to recognize BNI contractors, the David Lawrence Centers, Valerie's House, Chrysalis Health, Centerstone, Studio Plus, Park Royal Hospital, and Hope Clubhouse for their key contributions, along with all the other generous donors who are listed on your program. Thank you all for your dedication and your giving spirit in making this today's event a success. In addition to those already mentioned, we also need to acknowledge a handful of truly amazing worker bees who, as usual, went above and beyond the call of duty. Cheryl Schlichter from Healthy Lee, Lauren Walker, our Senior Program Manager at the Center for Population Health at Lee Health, and the person who ably supports everything I do in that organization. Megan Palumbo from Park Royal Hospital, Deb Camella from Drug Free Southwest Florida, Tim Reeder from Chrysalis Health, and many members of the Healthy Lee Behavioral Health Coalition who attended meetings, populated work groups, and offered up their talents, expertise, and goodwill. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, thank you. Finally, I wish to give a shout out to our founding student member, Carly McGovern, without whom this event would not be what it is today. I know you're watching virtually, Carly, and we're so proud that of this year's student support in continuing your dream. The student support of which I speak includes two new rising seniors who joined this event, bravely stepping into the role that Carly created for herself and others over the past 2 years. Let us give now a warm round of applause to Carly and her team, Dominique Parkey and Grace Smith. Bravo. So what I want to say is that these students truly went above and beyond in making this year's event possible, especially given the hurdles we've all been facing now with the second surge of the pandemic. Taking Normal is Overrated and making it a fully virtual event is something to truly admire. This is not an easy thing to pull off, as I know you know. Not only were we able to continue this annual event within our region, but it's now reaching well beyond borders of Southwest Florida into several other states in the Union. I'm also told that on occasion we reach Canada, which can only be a good thing. I'll let the students fill you in on these really exciting details. There are just a few other important things that I want to say. Normal is Overrated. Our effort to break down barriers and reduce mental health discrimination was always conceived as a community conversation. In fact, the Healthy Lee Coalition has as its informal charter to convene community neighbors, individuals, families, and groups in service of addressing mental health issues with compassion, honesty, and acceptance. Given the state of our broken world, we need to talk and to be one another to understand ourselves, our situation, and our common humanity. This is the first step on the path to healing. What we're going to hear today will be many things, some sad, others painful, but all courageous and uplifting, because it's our collective journey that is our ultimate destination. Talking with one another, facing hard truths about what it means to be human can be challenging, but in the end, it will come as a great relief. Talking, that ritual and reverential gathering around the campfire since the dawn of man, is still something that is important to us. It's critical to how we connect. It's critical to how we accompany one another, and it's critical for holding the hope as we wend our way through difficult times. For some of you, this is going to be especially difficult, as the stories, feelings, and memories expressed and re-experienced may leave you in a shaky place. If that occurs, fear not, as we have a number of national resources in the chat box section of the screen. Although we may hear some stories of sadness and struggles today, we're all in this together, and these brave students are testimony to that. Remember, none of us ends this event without feeling safe and okay, even if feeling okay means being okay with not being okay. That's the nature, that is the spirit and ethos of Normal is Overrated. All right, I think we're ready. Let's, I have the great privilege of turning this over to Kelly McGuire, who's going to be our keynote speaker, and then we're going to meet Dominique, Grace, and all of our other wonderful students and speakers. I'm really excited about this, really excited about this, and so let's do it. Thanks, everybody.
People often ask me, why do I advocate for mental health? Depending on the time, the place, and the person, I usually land on the lines of, it's complicated. It's complicated is comfortable. It is quick, it is easy, and it is accepted by the majority of those who ask. They respond with a nervous laugh, coupled with a bit of an eye roll, smile, and move on with their day. But for me, saying it's complicated leaves me feeling empty and hollow. It's complicated just invalidated my entire life's experience, my entire reasoning behind why I do what I do. I have dismissed my achievements, my dreams, my passions, and my past traumas because I believe that despite someone asking me this question, why do I advocate for mental health, that they really don't want to hear my story. I challenge you today, as you hear from these amazing, courageous, and inspiring teens, to ask yourself, why do you do the things you do? What experiences have you gone through in life that have brought you to this moment today? What is your why? I sure as hell can tell you that there's a lot more to your story than just a hollow and empty, it's complicated. So, why do I advocate for mental health? Why has the majority of my high school and college career become so dedicated to eradicating the stigma of mental illness through storytelling and education? Why do I emphasize so loudly that suicide is the second leading cause of death among 10 to 24-year-olds? That just here in Florida, we have a 750-to-1 ratio of population to mental health providers. Why do I speak on behalf of the 46,000 plus children here in Southwest Florida who are in need of mental health care? I speak because I have been there. My passion comes from my pain, and I believe that all of us have the ability to turn this pain of ours into power. As I stand here before you today, the little girl inside of me is shaking with fear. She is scared, she is timid, and a piece of her still wants to stand here and mumble, it's complicated. She wants to hide away in the shadows because that was what she was always taught to do. She still believes that her voice is not powerful enough, that her story is not worthy enough, and that all that she's gone through was never that bad. But this little girl has one hell of a story, and it began when she was just 3 years old. 3 years old, I'm so confused, and I am so scared. I'm scared of the bad guys, the ones who will come and hurt me when I'm alone. I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of swimming lessons. I'm scared of the mean lady at daycare. I have nightmares like a broken record, and my screams wake me up each night. I was abused and drugged in my daycare facility. And at such a young age, I didn't and still can't fully process all that happened there. At 6 years old, I'm the classroom leader. I'm loud, I'm a bit dramatic, a little too confident, and maybe even a little mean. But back at home, I feel like I have no control. My mom is sick with cancer, and I don't even know what that means. All I know is that her hair is gone and that she can't always do the things that she used to do for me. I'm 11 years old, and you would think that the school bus was set on fire based on my fear of riding it. I stood at the end of the driveway waiting for the bus to arrive, hurled over in pain from my stomach being turned into knots. Kids at school were mean, and the fear of facing them landed me in a psychiatrist's office, being diagnosed with this thing called anxiety. I'm 12 years old, and things haven't gotten much better. My anxiety is only increasing. I'm not the same loud and obnoxious kid in school anymore. The pounding in my chest and beet red face every time I have to raise my hand makes me very quiet. I'm also really sad and find myself looking forward to bed so I can cry myself to sleep. I've seen kids self harm and soon discover that it really does help release some of the built up pain I hold inside. But soon it's not enough, and I turn to suicide. But I survived. I made it to 13. I understand the hard way that suicide is never an option. I feel like I am surviving just for the sake of others. Then my mom is diagnosed with cancer again. I am so angry, but really I am just so scared. I start counting objects, flashing my bedroom light 35 times, turning my pen sideways, and changing the music volume in the car obsessively as a way to combat the fears of my loved ones dying. I am diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and depression. This little girl fought like hell through almost every milestone in her life. At 8 years old, she hated her body. She thought she was so fat. At 14, she missed 89 class periods after being diagnosed with epilepsy and seizing before school. And at 18, she had to take a 3-month leave of absence from school to attend a treatment facility after being emotionally abused by the person she looked up to the most. Why do you advocate for mental health? It's complicated. We are here today to advocate for today's generation of children struggling with mental illness. We are taking a stand on the issues behind the stigma that has created so many barriers to proper resources and care for young people suffering. But at the same time that we advocate for the 46,000 plus children here in Southwest Florida and the hundreds of thousands more all across the country, we are also here to advocate for ourselves. Because within every single one of you here today, there is a younger version of ourselves watching. There is a younger version of us whose story deserves so much more than it's complicated. There is a younger version of us who needs comfort and love, and all too often we believe that we've outgrown these phases, that the problems of the past are just that, the past. But here's the thing. Our brains may have shoved these hardships deep down into the forgotten land of repressed memories, but our bodies never forget trauma. They cannot forget trauma. I am a mental health advocate because I can stand here today owning my story. I can stand here and share that I have lived with anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, suicidal ideation, and post traumatic stress disorder. I have lived through the good parts, the bad parts, and all of the moments in between. I can stand here today and say that while I have overcome so much in such a short amount of time, that I am still healing. I'm still a bit broken from the things that happened to me at such a young age. I'm here to tell you that healing sucks. But if healing were easy, either you haven't experienced the growth that comes from overcoming pain or you aren't really healing. I have been in therapy since I was 15 years old. I am 21 years old now, turning 22 tomorrow, and I'm only just beginning to heal my 3, 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 18-year-old self. I'm only just beginning to understand that the core beliefs of feeling unworthy of love and respect as a toddler have had a direct influence on how I think, feel, and act today. We are all advocates in one way or another. All of us have persevered through some degree of adversity. If anything, This pandemic has shown us just how much we are all capable of overcoming. We have had to strap up and hold on tight on a roller coaster of unpredictability for nearly 2 years now. 2 years. And many of us have been on this roller coaster for much longer than that. So now I ask you again, why do you do the things you do? What in your life, in your childhood, in your challenges, in your pain, your trauma, your successes, your dreams, what has happened to you that has gotten you here? The children of today need us to support them. They need us to spread far and wide the statistics behind the issue of mental health in our society. They need us to share loudly that since fall of 2020, there has been a 66% increase in youth being placed under the Baker Act law. They need us to find the courage to step up and say enough to the stigma. No child should have to live through abuse. No child should have to grow up feeling neglected. No child should be afraid to go to school because kids are bullying them. No child should grow up feeling worthless and unlovable. Let's all take a stand and show up for ourselves first. Be the person we needed when we were younger. Embrace your inner child and shower them with the love and support you needed at the time. Then and only then will we really help in making a positive impact. Why do I advocate for mental health? It's not complicated. This is my story. This is my purpose. This is my passion. I have found beauty in rising above my pain while also welcoming it in with open arms. I have found validation, love, and support for myself and others in this world who are suffering from mental illness. Your story is not complicated. It is yours and only yours. And I hope you know that when you're ready, the world needs to hear it. The world needs your stories, your experiences, your dreams, your passions, and even your traumas. Because for everything you've gone through, there is someone else out there who understands all too well what you've been through. To the teens speaking here today, I want you to know that we see you. We hear you and we applaud you for taking that leap of courage to say, my story is not complicated. It is mine. It is beautiful, raw, and real. I don't think you fully know just how much of an impact you're going to have on people watching today. And to all of the teens out there who may be struggling, know that one day not too long ago, I was where you were. Of course, I cannot fully understand all that you have gone through as I have not walked in your shoes. What I do know is that you have had to live through so much in your lifetime, and yet look where you are today. You are here, you are present, you are showing up for yourself time and time again. If all you do today is wake up, I am proud of you. I'm proud of you for continuing to fight through the hardest days because the world needs you here. The world needs your story, your passions, your dreams. The world needs your input because you have some incredible ideas and contributions. Your voice matters. You are worthy. And if nobody told you this today, know that you are so loved. Our stories are not complicated. I will say this over and over again until it fully sinks in. Own your story. Know that healing is never easy and that it is okay to ask for help. Remember to acknowledge that inner child inside of you. Embrace them with all the love they might not have received. Find the purpose and beauty in your pain. Use this pain to take back the power and shine a light on those who may also be struggling. We are all capable of creating change. We all have the power to stand up and say, this is me. This is why I do what I do. It's not that complicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for sharing and informing the importance of mental health advocacy. Let's kick off with our first speaker, Zoe. She is an IB junior at Fort Myers High School. And without further ado, please welcome Zoe.
Hello. As Dominique said, I am Zoe. First, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who is watching either here in person or through Zoom. The support truly means a lot, and I'd especially like to thank my family who support me no matter what, and I love them dearly. I'm a junior at Fort Myers High School, and in my short 16 years of life, I have been very lucky, more so than most people that struggle with similar things that I do. I have grown up in a stable 2-parent home with love everywhere. I've never had to worry about finances or any quote unquote grown up things. that too many people my age have had to. On paper, my life is perfect. It looks like I should have nothing to be sad about or to complain about. However, those things do not determine one's state of mind. I was only recently diagnosed with severe anxiety in middle school, but it had been going on for much longer than that. My main memories from my elementary years were being labeled as the problem child. I could never sit still, I was always getting distracted, and I failed most tests. But the one memory from those ages that tears me apart is that I was afraid simply to live. I never felt safe, even though I lived in a gated community and I had an alarm system. I knew realistically I was safe, but it kept me up at night thinking that something bad was going to happen. I was constantly in a state of fear. I have always had intrusive thoughts. If I ever was sitting still or concentrating, the back of my mind would just be yelling, "Your mom and dad could die in a car wreck right now," or "A bad man could be in the school right now, ready to shoot us all." My parents always told me those things would never happen, but I always responded with "what if?" That is a lot for a 7-year-old to handle. Still, my parents, my family, my teachers, and the school brush it off as an energetic, gifted little girl. You would think that the people that see me every day and spend time with me every day would know that those things are not normal. Luckily for me, I have parents that care about my mental well being. When I was in kindergarten, my parents took me to see a therapist to see if I had ADHD, who I'm sure was a nice woman, but my 6-year-old brain decided that I hated her because she did not listen to me and would not let me go to the bathroom when I asked. But even with that, I was still just the energetic, gifted little girl. Anxiety was never a thought in my parents' or my therapist's mind. So my fight with fear continued. As I got older, I got better at shoving those feelings down deep. Until 7th grade, when something happened that still affects me today. As most 7th graders do, I stayed up late one night to play on my phone. I was texting with friends on Snapchat, playing games, and watching YouTube. I was looking through my Snapchat stories when I came across my friend's story that simply said goodbye. Me, being the very nosy person I am, texted him saying, "Where are you going?" Which he responded with, "Heaven." I do not remember much past that part in the conversation. I do remember running to my mom and dad, who were getting ready for bed. I ran in with tears streaming down my face and my entire body shaking. When my mom asked what was wrong, I said through my tears, "My friend is going to kill himself." The rest of that night is a blur. The only clear part was sitting at the kitchen table with 3 officers while 4 police cars were parked outside of my house as I tried to help them while my body shook uncontrollably. Finally, the police were able to find him and he was okay. This would be an extremely difficult experience for an adult, let alone a 12-year-old. The next morning, I went to school sleep deprived, emotionally drained, and unable to focus on the smallest tasks, which to my teachers did not seem too out of the ordinary. At lunch, the vice principal pulled me aside to give me a hug and tell me that what I did was brave. I saw the school counselor 2 or 3 times, and that was the end of it. Until I found out that my friend had been Baker acted. If you do not know what that is, it is when a person is involuntarily or voluntarily admitted to a mental hospital when it is thought that they could be a danger to themselves or others. This can be a very traumatizing time for young people, especially if admitted involuntarily. When my friend got out, he blamed me for everything. He told me I ruined his life, and I believed him. Then I was slightly at peace when he moved away. This was one of my lowest points. I went into a deep depression. I was having panic attacks almost every day for weeks, until I could finally not take any more of it, and I went back to therapy, which was kind of helpful. It was better than bottling it up and having even more panic attacks. I became even better at hiding my feelings and seeming normal to the world outside my bedroom. I even had my family slightly fooled that I was getting better. But my depression only became worse, to the point where I was not motivated to even brush my teeth for weeks at a time. However, slowly that incident was starting to fall behind me, and I felt okay. I'm a people pleaser. I need to be there for everyone, and I have struggled so much to say no to anyone and to set boundaries. The middle of 8th grade took a turn when my other friend, who struggled with their mental health, told me they were going to kill themselves. I sat there for a minute just thinking, I cannot go through this again. Would it be better not to stop them so I don't have to deal with it again? Would the pain of their death be any different from the trauma of taking it upon myself? And I hated myself for even having that thought. Luckily, this was much more contained, and we were able to get in contact with the family right away, and nothing bad happened, except that I had lost a friendship. My mom, wanting to protect me, told me to keep my distance. My mental health was bad enough as it was. I could not handle any other people's problems as well. Their family talked to the school, and it was no longer in my hands, although it was still in my head. Again, the next day, I went to school, sleep deprived and emotionally drained. My last class was the worst. My teacher never failed to make life more frustrating. I had recently gotten an ear piercing, and my ear swelled 3 times its size. So I asked my teacher if I could go to the nurse to get some ice. The nurse was literally in the room next to our classroom, but my teacher repeatedly said no. I was so tired and so emotionally drained by the last time I asked him, and he told me if it was that bad, you would have gone already. I responded by blowing up. I yelled at him, cussed at him, and broke down. It was very clear before that I was having a bad day and I needed some support and sympathy. However, that is not in a teacher's job description, and they do not get paid enough as it is to take on being a therapist as well. In 8th grade, I was put on Zoloft, which is used to help treat anxiety and depression, which helped so that I did not feel sad anymore, but I did not feel happy either. I was just numb enough to be productive. Although after a while, medicine along with therapy became a great tool for me. Then I went into 9th grade. I was in the mindset of a new school, new start, new me. It did not take time for that to fail. My mental health started declining again. Soon I started self harming to distract my mind from all the things piling up in my brain. I knew it was not healthy, but I thought that it worked. When I started self harming, I started shutting down. I was pushing my family and friends away, all while holding up a fake happiness. I wanted to stop self harming after a while, so I started doing some research. As I did research, I realized that cutting is not the only form of self harm, and that I had been self harming for years. Purposely trying to get hurt, feeling the need to get piercings or tattoos to be happy, or putting myself in situations that I knew I was going to get hurt from, and more. Self harm is not as transparent as some may think. It is agonizing to resist hurting yourself when you see the scars are fading, or when you have a moment of extreme emotional pain and defeat. I feel so guilty whenever I get the urge to self harm because I know it would break my parents' heart to see me go through that again. Guilt is the worst part of mental health. Not wanting to disappoint family or friends, feeling like a hypocrite for telling others not to self harm or bottle up their feelings. We take into consideration everyone but ourselves. When the pandemic hit and we were all sent home, I felt lost as soon as it happened. I am a very social person. It makes me happy to be with other people. So the last year and a half was rough for me. I felt trapped and alone. I was not seeing my friends or my family, just me, my parents, and my sister in our little bubble. So the self harm got worse, which again I hid from my parents for a while. At this point, I was not doing therapy, just the medicine, which did not work as well for me. I found that a combination of the proper medicine and a therapist worked best for me. My family and I decided for me to start virtual school, and I continued through the entire year online. It had its perks, but it also had parts that sucked, like being isolated in a room all day, every day. School has a mental health awareness program called Wellness Wednesday, and that few pay attention to because it's just videos. It's hard to complain, though, when the school is actually trying. However, it's not the right thing for students. The videos are not effectively reaching out to the students in the way it is intended. The Wellness Wednesday coordinators need to think in a mindset of a teenager. Students will thrive more in a communication based environment, more so than mindlessly listening to videos. The most important things teachers and school staff can do is be more understanding. Recognize that we have a life outside of school just like the rest of you, and kids do not have the same skill sets as adults to deal with these big feelings and struggles. We all have bad days. I ask that everyone, students, teachers, and staff, be more understanding and sympathetic to what might be going on outside of school so that we can all take a step forward in the right direction, along with other programs that are either in progress or have been established to help us move towards change. My advice for parents whose children are going through similar things is to just be there for them and constantly tell them that you love them no matter what. Kids don't always want solutions or your opinion. We want someone to listen and hug us and tell us that they are here for us. Take it upon yourself to do the research and find help that will work for them. You signed up for this, but they did not. So you must be the one to step up. It is your responsibility to help them sustain a healthy and happy life. If your child is self harming, do not lock them away and take away everything. They need more support and to hear that you understand that they are hurting and that you want to help. It is a traumatizing experience for both kids and parents to deal with self-harm and withdrawal. And parents, do not blame yourself for your child's struggles. Even if you do, don't tell them that's how you feel. That just feeds into the guilt children already have to deal with when it comes to mental health. A healthy and strong support system is one of the main keys to working through our struggles. Be there for your friends and family. Tell them that you love them and tell them it'll be okay. The strongest and most meaningful words that someone who is struggling can hear is, I am here for you and I love you. Everything will be okay and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Since its inception in 2016, Kids Minds Matter has 2 or 3 overarching goals. The first is to increase quality, access to quality mental health services locally, and that's something we've really worked hard to do. The second is to advocate for additional services and programs, not just within the Lee system, but also regionally. And then thirdly, to address the issue of stigma and to get the word out about what kind of suffering is going on and what resources are out there.
What I do for Kids Minds Matter is oversee our public education as well as our mental health navigation program. Some of the initiatives where we've been actually reaching out to underserved communities is we can now offer not just mental health first aid, but our support group. We can offer our dignified discipline. We've also worked with Visuality to start an LGBTQ support group for adolescents. Starting that group in cooperation with a community-based organization that's been in the community for over 15 years is exciting, and it was possible through Kids Minds Matter.
Our mental health navigators that have been embedded by Kids Minds Matter into our school district have really been such a blessing. They walk a family and that child through uncovering and sometimes kind of peeling back the layers of an onion to say what's going on, what are your needs, and then determining the best way to meet those needs and help them navigate side by side with that family until they're able to access the services and then maintain those services on their own.
We've seen some great successes. Our first quarter, we improved grades, we improved attendance across the board.
We have partnered with all sorts of organizations in the last couple of years since I've been here. We've done our very popular Normal is Overrated event, which is a one-day student-led conference where kids come and talk about their mental health issues, which is the most heartening thing I've seen.
Ultimately, we had to decide to take Normal is Overrated 2020 virtual, and not only did we reach Southwest Florida families and students, we reached 12 additional states outside of the state of Florida in offering that event virtually.
I think what's great about Normal is Overrated is it really helps destigmatize the conversation around mental illness, which in turn helps kids get help because they can actually speak up about what's causing them issues. And there were a lot of teachers and parents saying, you know, I had no idea that people were going through this. And this event is really great because I'm just learning so much. You know, there were a lot of kids that were saying, thank you for speaking up about this, thank you for helping us. And in the room as well, there was such a positive energy with people being able to speak about what's been hurting them for so long. It was hard for some parts of it, but the fact that people could be so open was also really meaningful.
We provide mental health. We provide an annual mental health fair that sort of lets people know what's going on in the community.
We bring in the behavioral health organizations, agencies within Region 8, so Southwest Florida. We're bringing them in and we're asking them to present what current behavioral health services they offer. If there's an area or a gap, we're identifying it at these events.
Our Healthy Minds initiative, which is a free screening, behavioral health screening initiative, which we did with Sailors Care with support from Kids Minds Matter, is going out into the community, kind of wrapping our arms around the community to address all of the various needs, you know, particularly among people who have no resources and also may not be plugged into the mental health system. We partnered last year with the Florida Rep to bring in Every Brilliant Thing, which is a really lovely one-person show that dealt with suicide from an artistic point of view. And we partnered with the Lee County Schools, Lee and Colley County Schools, to bring that in as well. That's just a handful of things that we've done, and we have many more ongoing that we're pursuing.
Thank you, Zoe, for that powerful speech. Our next speaker up is Megan. She is a senior at Fort Myers High School and is in the marching band. She's so excited to share her story. Please welcome Megan.
Hello. As you know now, my name is Megan Piñeiro. Growing up, I was your typical, energetic, happy little girl. I was exceedingly creative to the point that it got me in trouble at times. Excitable and completely, utterly authentic, with no care for others' opinions. I loved to learn and did well in school, despite the fact that I was not the best at paying attention in class. At 11 years old, something in me changed. Be it puberty, changing the chemical composition of my brain, or merely the changing circumstances of school, adding stress, I began to develop symptoms of depression and anxiety. I would cry almost daily, lash out at my family often, and isolate myself. To escape the numb pain and crippling fear of the outside world, I began to daydream, building a fantasy world in my head where not only was I this superior version of myself, but I also had a successful and exciting life. I lost all my motivation to exist in the real world, and as such, stopped my constant creation. My once proud habits of drawing and crafting became a rarity. To escape the anxiety took hold of my relationships, and I became desperate to hold on to anyone who appeared to tolerate and enjoy my existence. I became the therapist to others, leading to abuse of such privileges and harassment from my male friends. I became distrusting due to it, and then began to shrink my friend group and distrust men. My schoolwork took a drastic hit in quality, especially when I hit high school. Despite all the clear symptoms, due to the misunderstandings of teenage girls and depression, it took until I was 14, in October of my freshman year of high school, to get diagnosed with depression and anxiety. It also took until August of this year, 2021, to get diagnosed with ADHD. Explain my academic difficulties. I began therapy my freshman year, and things had to take a turn for the worse before they could get better. I had been avoiding thinking the whole time prior through the daydreaming and constant absorption of books and media. So when I was finally forced to address the issues in therapy, it hurt. I hadn't realized just how deep the self-hatred ran. Just how loud that vile voice in my head that told me just how horrible and worthless I am was. I typically was fairly good at recognizing my suicidal thoughts as me just wanting to be out of my current situation, just wanting control. Unfortunately, during the process of healing, reopening the wounds of self-hatred revealed some truly suicidal thoughts. It was scary just how my mind could come up with a plan to end it all. I made sure to keep myself away from the most dangerous sources of my ideations. I also dealt with thoughts of self-harm. I had already attempted it unknowingly back in the 8th grade, which for context, I had done by trying to snap myself with a rubber band every time when I thought I became annoying to stop myself and spoke too much about myself. I truly thought that I had no real personality or anything that I exhibited of such was abhorrent. That turned out to be a product of my ADHD, by the way. I don't mean to be self-centered. I just try to relate to others' experiences by sharing my own similar ones, drawing connections. And I do it a lot. Nonetheless, the self-harm and suicidal ideations became a hindrance, especially when they affected my performance socially. In fact, I had to quit a club once because on the way back from a long field trip my freshman year, I became racked with thoughts of self-harm and fully planned to go through with it when I got home. I sat there on that bus, having moved away from my friends in an effort to be amicable to someone who requested move, with my desperate desire to be liked shining through in that moment, and let the darkness hide my tears as I sat in fear of my own mind, in disgust at myself. I began to take antidepressants at age 15, February of my freshman year. After beginning them, my life changed for the better. My world became colorful once again, and I had more energy. I was happier, I felt more emotions, and I was more motivated. The medication helped me to absorb the concepts that I was learning in therapy, as beforehand, it just wasn't sinking in. I was too ill before to be able to help myself. The voice was too strong. With the medication helping to manage the imbalance, the voice stepped away for a while so that the therapist could actually get through to me. For the next 2 years after that, I made steady progress until the pandemic happened. I stopped my medication early in 2020 and entered a relationship that just did not work well for me or my mental state. The isolation took a toll on me as well. I began to become self-hating once again, particularly focusing on my physical appearance this time. I felt unworthy and unattractive. It felt as if I had taken several steps backwards in my progress, and it was devastating. My focus and social skills continued to deteriorate throughout the rest of 2020, as did my self-confidence until the relationship ended. I moved on and realized that I did not deserve to be treated the way that I was. It sent me into a boost where I channeled all my emotion into building myself up once again. I became very confident in myself, both physically and internally, also partly due to me beginning to take medication again. Unfortunately, this did not transfer over to my academic abilities and focus. I did Lee Home Connect for my junior year of high school, and it cost me my honor roll placement. I could not focus for the life of me, and even when I had my desk fully set up and prepared to avoid distractions, or as many as I could without kicking out my newly adopted Siamese cat. It became even more difficult than it already had been to get out of bed, bordering on impossible at times. Nothing felt real, so it was incredibly easy for me to just miss classes often and ignore my emails once the work began to pile up. I no longer enjoyed my classes and as such struggled to get any work done, as I could only rarely pay attention. Putting me in online school set me up for failure, but I also was not willing to put my family at risk or myself, so I tried to suffer through. It was insanely difficult. The more work I let pile up, the more I daydreamed about whatever my latest hyperfixation was at the time. Even when I tried to force myself to focus in class, I'd end up lost quickly. I had no one to spend time with other than my family and my best friend. And although I have other friends, I struggle to remember to text or even have the energy to engage in conversation. I began to cry often once again, and school became a deeply upsetting ordeal. I'd have breakdowns on an almost weekly basis, and I nearly failed a course. All of this occurred without having access to the accommodations I needed due to my ADHD, but had no access to because of just how difficult it is to diagnose in women, let alone the fact that I was almost an adult at the time. Throughout the 2020-2021 school year, I suffered so much that when the year ended, I needed an entire month to recover fully. Then, of course, school returned quite quickly, and although I was distressed at the prospect of going through the constant confusion, overworking, and frustration all over again, the fears became greatly lessened with the social interaction brought about by my marching band camp. I grew excited to try again when I saw my classes and had more hope for the future. I switched medications as well to make my dosage easier, and the medication has worked well for my mood and anxiety so far. As of now, I'm still struggling, especially in getting my work done and focusing. But I'm hoping now that I have my accommodations sorted out through my new official diagnosis, and with therapy now shifting to cover ADHD, that I will be able to turn it around and do better. I know what I'm capable of. I just truly need help and support. I need understanding. Either way, improvement has happened and will continue to happen. Socially, I've improved drastically. I don't know why I have less social anxiety, considering just how little interaction I got throughout the quarantine, but nonetheless, I feel fairly good about my social life. I try to spend time with people often, and although I'm still quite bad at responding to texts, I try my best to keep up. And emotionally, I feel pretty good. I love having friends, going out, doing clubs. I love just being a teenager. I still daydream a lot, which is a constant issue that causes my lack of sleep quite often, but it has improved and is more so a processing and entertainment thing. I'm proud of myself no matter what. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm actually still doing things. That's crazy for me. I will continue to work on my trust, relationships, energy, focus, and general life, but I have faith in myself. I didn't shoot for the moon to hit the stars, and I'm not giving up today. And for those of you in the audience who have felt what I've described today, or who know people who have shown similar symptoms, go get help. It was the best thing to happen to me. And even though the healing process is tough, it's worth it. I could not fathom where I'd be today without the support of my family, friends, doctors, psychiatrists, and therapists. There is no shame in healing and in improvement. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can learn from my experiences.
Hi, I'm Gary Griffin, President of B&I Contractors, and we are proud to support the Normal is Overrated program as we continue our partnership with Healthy Lee and their goal to improve the behavioral health and well-being of our youth here in Southwest Florida.
Megan, that was a very impactful speech. Our next speaker is Cass. He's also a junior at Fort Myers High School, and he's also in the marching band. So everyone, please give up for Cass.
Good morning, everyone. As Dominique stated, my name is Castian. I'm a junior at Fort Myers High School, and I'm 16. I march our school's drumline, where I've met probably some of the most important people to me that help me through my journey every day. My experience is broad and comes in many forms as a transgender student in Lee County. 10 years old is when my trauma became apparent to me and actually set in. As long as I can remember, my biological father has never been around for me more than a month. I've been told stories of how negatively he impacted our lives and saw it every time it was convenient for him to be around. My father drank every day, dawn till dusk, and was highly drug addicted. It brought me so much anger every day. It made me question, why me? Why don't I deserve a decent father figure like everyone else who's normal? I soon learned that normality doesn't come from where you do. My father now has been in prison for over 6 years. He's clean, he's a youth minister, and is even vegan now. Even though I still struggle with him, I believe there's a lot of future potential in our relationship. And I've been gifted with an amazing stepdad to guide me through life and pave a positive straight edge road for me and my little brothers. Nothing has ever been easy being a transgender student. Transgender is someone who doesn't reside with their gender or sex assigned at birth. I've known I was trans since I was very young, but was never given the chance to understand it or explore it until maybe 6th grade. At that point, I read into the topic and came out to my mother. At first, my mother was pretty invalidating and unsupportive. We argued almost every day. I begged her to just try and understand the pain that I went through just to be myself. After about 2 years, she came around to realizing that this wasn't changing anytime soon, and that this wasn't just a phase, but something that I did struggle with greatly every day. She has grown to be my absolute #1 supporter, and I wouldn't be the man I am today without my mom, or even my stepdad. He may not understand everything about it, but he's never been opposed or in denial of it, and has done nothing but do his best to support me in any way he can. I'm forever grateful for him. Almost all of my friends were definitely confused at first, but with some more tender love and care on the topic as a group, they came to be extremely supportive and honestly got me through middle school. Without them, I wouldn't be here giving you guys a speech today that I never even knew I had the confidence for. Middle school went as far as people threatening me in the bathrooms, harassing me in the lunchroom, and even in plain sight in front of teachers. What was supposed to be a safe and healthy learning environment was really my worst nightmare every day. I walked those halls with a constant chest full of fear. I never felt safe. Both middle schools I went to were traumatic experiences. No matter where I went, I was bullied. If it wasn't a student, it was a teacher. I felt so alone. But going back to where I went before to connect with these friends, I learned that no matter where you go in life or what you do, there's always going to be people who don't agree with what you are and the choices you make in society. As long as I enjoy what I'm doing and I'm confident in it, it doesn't matter what other people say to me. In this time of switching schools, circumstances were I lost my house and ended up having nowhere to go, couch surfing for many months. This weighed on me more than anything and does to this day. Almost every day, I go to work to make as much money as I can because of a lingering anxiety that my family won't have what they need and could end up crammed in a tiny room again, 5 people. Somehow the burnout always felt worth it, but I gained little satisfaction. I'm seeing that things are getting better and I'm not having to worry about these things. I take time to meditate and breathe and connect with family and friends how I was never able to before. In 2018, I was diagnosed separately with manic depression. It's one of the biggest struggles that I have. Highs and lows, lefts and rights. Manic depression can cause things like hallucinate manic episodes and short-term memory loss. For me, it may also made me lose my motivation. I've lost sleep. I've lost my appetite and end up feeling so disconnected from the world that I isolate myself from people. In the same year, I was Baker acted under an evaluation for self-harm and suicidal thoughts. I think it's safe to say my experience in a mental hospital was bad. I thought I would be going there to get a jump start on some therapy and to get a right first step on bettering myself. But I, in fact, left there with more demons than I ever even showed up with. For me, it was more of a place to just get a break from the cruel world of school and isolate for a bit to clear my mind. On November 3rd, 2017, an exact week before my birthday, I lost my friend Andrew to an overdose. We were closer than sardines packed into a mini can. We did absolutely everything together with our friend Austin before he moved up to Jacksonville, Florida. Night of November 2nd, I went to sleep. He was okay. The next morning, my phone was blown up with notifications from him. 1 minute he was there, and the next he vanished like I blinked. That morning before I was going to school, I picked up my tablet to see a bunch of messages from Andy telling me, "I love you. It's not your fault. Please don't blame yourself. There's nothing you could have done." And before I knew it, I got a hold of his sister just for her to tell me that he passed away. I felt the utmost guilt, and because I told him if he ever needed me, then to just call, but my tablet was on silent that night. It made me feel guilty knowing that I wasn't there for him, and there was probably more that I could have done. I didn't want to accept that he actually wanted to kill himself because I saw him so much brighter than he saw himself. But I've grown to understand that if someone genuinely wants to harm themselves, that if someone genuinely wants to harm themselves, there isn't much to say to make them stop or think differently. You can't force it on someone. But there are many things that you can say to someone to remind them of their worth. Little things can make the biggest differences in someone's day. We're all capable of love and acceptance. Some just need to be shown that there are people out there who are there for them and they're not alone. I believe Andy would be truly proud of how I've grown and been given this opportunity. It makes me happy to be able to do this and let him live through my speech. No matter where I go, he lives in me as long as I remember him. The way I've coped these past couple years is always keeping in mind what I'm grateful for. Looking around and understanding that I'm safe where I am now, and I'm alive and here for a grand purpose. Simply picking out the small things that you're grateful for can bring you a very long way in a mental journey. I just want to say thank you for everyone who came out and listened to our speeches. We worked very hard on them, and Normal is Overrated has given me an opportunity on a big chunk of perspective that I don't think I'm going to grasp until leaving here today. Awareness and acceptance comes when we decide to break the stigma. No amount of diagnosis can take away your right to have a voice.
During the past year, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to make changes on so many levels.
Feeling alone and isolated is something that we've all felt. and not knowing what to expect has made life a lot more challenging.
Wouldn't it be great to reboot, work through some of these emotions and fears?
Through the Chrysalis program, you'll be matched with a trained counselor who will help you deal with these emotions by talking about how we can change our thinking and reset the way we're feeling.
Just as our bodies need to be fit, so do our minds.
With Chrysalis, you can expect one hour session to help ease our minds and give us a sense of well-being.
To get started, all you need to do is call 1-888-587-0335 or go to the Chrysalis website and fill out a referral. A Chrysalis specialist will walk you through the process.
If you're struggling, reach out. Work through what is holding you back.
Hi, I'm Abby. Um, the lack of mental health education in schools today is shocking. It seems young people only learn about mental health when they go through it themselves. The breaking down the stigma and misconceptions of mental health needs to start in the schools. School is where a person's first friendships are made and their self-worth is created. It's also where students need to learn that their behaviors towards others can drastically affect someone else. Picking on the so-called strange kid can cause years of self-worth issues for that child. Teachers, parents, and administrators need to lead that forefront when it comes to teaching children about acceptance. Mental health is a community issue. Parents need to be educated about mental health so they know how to understand their child and the steps they need to take to help them. Some adults think feelings and emotions are something that should be kept inside. They see it as a sign of weakness and think that it's a made up problem or something that should never be mentioned. This mindset hurts people, keeping things inside and leaves them with nowhere to turn. The effect The effect of that can lead to self-harm and or suicide. Elementary school was rough. When first grade started, I was having trouble learning to read. I was held back twice and became 2 years older than all of the other children. I'd tell people how old I was and they'd bully me. I started special classes and learned that I had autism. This was hard because we didn't know how it would affect my education or how it would affect me socially. Being autistic has always set me apart from the people around me. I feel like it has made me stand out in a way that was different from other people. I did and thought of things differently than the average person. Most teachers weren't very accepting of that and didn't understand my need to do things differently. I feel like my autism has really given me a different view of the world that most people don't have. I've grown to not see it as a hindrance, but more of a new perspective. I see things very black and white and don't understand most social cues, which was always hard growing up since I didn't get along with most kids. I never really made friends easily or understood people too well. I don't have the same boundaries as other people and don't always realize when I'm saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. My feelings would get hurt easily since I wouldn't understand when kids are joking or being sarcastic. I always took things too literally. I still struggle with these things now in my day-to-day life, but the important thing is I'm learning to cope. I still don't understand social cues and people's different tones, so it's important for me to surround myself with people who understand my thought process. It's made me realize how important it is to just be yourself. You shouldn't have to change yourself or dial down your personality to fit in with other people. You should always be who you are and accept your faults. Being judged by adults really hurt me. You'd think people who were older know more and are more understanding, but they aren't. People judged me without knowing me. At age 5, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I was held back in kindergarten because we had to figure out medications that would work for me. Sorry. It took a year, but through trial and error, we found a great medication that worked. My mom made it a normal conversation on how the medication made me feel.
At age 6, I was diagnosed with Tourette's. If you don't know what that is, it's involuntary movement or speech. Unfortunately, I have both. There is not a lot of awareness around Tourette's. I think that there needs to be more education given to students because it can help prevent a lot of bullying to kids who do have it. Having Tourette's has caused me a lot of anxiety, which started to hurt my mental health. All of my friends went to different schools, and I was in a new school all alone. I became deeply depressed in 6th grade. It was a very bad year for me. I still have problems talking about all the emotions and difficulties I went through. I never shared my struggles with anybody. Drawing and horses became my major coping mechanisms. I would keep a notebook on the side of my desk in all my classes and draw when I had anxiety. I also ride horses competitively, and my horse always makes me feel so much better. I learned different coping skills from my therapist and choose the ones that work the best for me. It's really important to not let yourself fall and to ask for help when you need it. It is important to know that not everyone out there is trying to hurt you. You'll find friends who you can discuss your mental health with. People made fun of me, and the harder I tried to hide my Tourette's, the worse it became. The tics were getting worse. I was now having vocal tics that were hard to hide and got me in trouble in class because teachers thought I was being disrespectful. I spent 8 hours a day in complete silence. It was the worst year of my life. I felt so alone and unsure of who I was. People would only talk to me when they needed a pen or answers. I've had very few teachers step in to stop the bullying and get to know me. I cried a lot because I hated my life and myself. I started cutting, but it didn't help. Then I felt like I wanted to die. My mom immediately got me an appointment with my psychiatrist. My social anxiety and depression were addressed by my new psychiatrist. It was scary, and I felt like the doctor was judging me, and really pushed me out of my comfort zone. We started on medication for depression and some counseling. I started telling my mom I felt better, but that was a lie. Sometimes I felt worse or even sick. Finally, I learned that in order to find the right medication, I need to be honest with myself, my doctors, and my family. It took about a year and a half to find a good medication combo. I had to be responsible and honest about every aspect of my medication. 7th grade was better. I made a friend who is outgoing. She helped me meet other kids and come out of my shell. 7th grade was a good year with the combo of medication and therapy. I had a new 504 plan that allowed me to draw when I was done with my work, which helped me tick less and kept my mind focused to help deal with my ADHD. We worked with teachers that were aware of my issues and made it easier to talk to a few of them. People still made fun of me, and not everyone liked me, but that was okay. Even though things weren't perfect, I was happy. I became a competitive rider and even made friends at the barn. I still had a hard time talking to people, which caused some conflict, but I kept learning how to talk and approach people. I also began to see that my autism had major benefits. I understood school, and math quickly became my favorite subject. My mind was fast moving and able to comprehend a lot quicker. Then the pandemic hit, and we started doing Lee virtual school. It was amazing for me. I loved to learn, and I loved the freedom it gave me. I also loved that I had no one picking on me all day. I had friends who I kept in touch with, and I kept in touch with them, but not being judged and able to focus on schoolwork worked for me. I found that the few friends I had were all that I needed, and I could focus on my writing. I wasn't picked on or made fun of anymore, and I felt less anxiety. Not being accepted for who I was hurt me from a very young age. I was afraid of what people will think and say. I never had friends because I was always the weird girl who never talked to anyone. I wanted friends but hated socializing. Sorry. I thought I was alone. I wanted to be anyone but myself and tried too hard to fit into this perfect picture that didn't exist. Then I realized I didn't socialize, and yes, I have anxiety, and that's okay. It's not something that I can just get over. Medication doesn't fix everything. You need to work on accepting yourself. Some days my depression will be worse than others, and that's okay too. It's okay to have bad days. You can't just keep everything bottled up inside. You have to be able to talk to people about what's going on. Medication isn't a cure all. I still have anxiety, depression, Tourette's, autism, and ADHD. Find things that bring you joy. If you can find good in the little things, you can build on that. Struggling with mental health is hard and you can't conquer it on your own. You need a support system. A support system can be anyone, a relative, a friend's parent, a teacher, or anyone you feel safe with. I know when I have a dark day, my mom is always someone I can talk to. I also have a couple of friends who struggle with mental health issues, and I can talk to them. My family has never let me feel bad for any of my issues, and everyone needs that kind of love and support. Standing up here in front of you, I can tell you that it will get better. You need to talk to people and reach out for help. Sometimes you need medication and sometimes you don't. Just know that there are groups and hotlines you can call if you feel suicidal or really depressed. Talk to your parents, your teachers, your friends, and anyone who will listen. I know it may be kind of cheesy, but if me telling you my story helps one person realize they can get help too, then this whole speech is worth it. Take charge of your mental health. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way. And that's kind of the motto you have to live by. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby, and all our speakers. Each one of your stories has a huge impact on our audience.
To our audience out there, we will be having a brief 5-minute intermission. After that, we will go ahead and jump into our Q&A panels. So if you have any questions, be prepared to ask our speakers and our 4 guest panelists. Thank you. Welcome back from our intermission. Our panelists and speakers are ready to answer your questions, so go ahead and put them in the chat. Now, let's meet our panelists. Kelly, why don't you kick us off with introductions?
Hi guys, I'm Kelly McGuire. I'm a senior at Florida Gulf Coast University.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chantel Rhodes, and I am a child advocate at Golisano Children's Hospital.
Good morning. My name is Sherry Wenzel, and I'm the coordinator for mental health services with Lee County Schools.
Morning, everybody. I'm Paul Simeone. I'm the VP Medical Director of Behavioral Health at Lee.
Hi, I'm Zoe. I go to Fort Myers High.
Hi, I'm Megan. I also go to Fort Myers High.
Hi, I'm Cass, and I go to Fort Myers High.
Hi, I'm Abby, and I do not go to Fort Myers High.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your introductions. My name is Megan. I work for Park Royal Hospital. I'll be managing the questions in the chat today. So we got some questions rolling in here. Some are directed to our panelists and some are just general questions. So feel free to just chime in as a panelist. Our first question is from Jessica. She says, I'm working with a group of girls. We have several conversations, mostly about bipolar. Parents have many questions. What would you say to help parents with understanding bipolar disorder?
Well, I was wondering whether or not the person who talked about having manic depressive illness, which we now call bipolar, wanted to speak to that. You want to speak to that? I'm happy to yak after that. Go ahead, Kev.
Yes, I do struggle with manic depression or bipolar. To parents, I just really think it's the patience, because bipolar a lot of the times is what it seems to be. It's bipolar. It's the ups and downs, the constant 0 to 10 with no in between. So to say to parents, I just really think that patience is the key. Like if, your kid is snapping and you notice it, just maybe taking a step forward isn't always what you have to do first. Sometimes you have to take a step back and see it for how it is and start from there and just be patient.
Absolutely true. What I would add to that is that I think what's essential about understanding anything having to do with behavioral health and mental health issues is education. I think there's a lot of information out there these days on bipolar illness. And bipolar illness has a lot of varieties. It's not just straightforward bipolar. There are many different variants that show up in different ways. What's also important to understand is that most people who are bipolar spend 90% of their time on the depressed end of things, with added levels of irritability and it's often a lot of irritability until they actually are manic. And a full manic episode generally includes a psychotic episode where people have a lot of difficulties with reality testing, delusions, hallucinations, that sort of thing. The other thing I would recommend, so just back to the resources, there are lots of really wonderful websites out there. When I want to know something, I generally go to the Harvard Medical School website or the Mayo Clinic website. Those are very reliable sources. The other thing I would recommend is getting involved with the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. I'm on the board of the Lee and Hendry and Glades County one. We're having a walk upcoming on October 5th. And so I just wanted to put that plug in. The National Alliance for the Mentally Ill is a wonderful organization started in the 70s by a couple of women who had sons with schizophrenia. And it really is about advocacy, education, providing support, and helping people to understand what the challenges are and providing a sanctuary for people to talk about it straightforwardly and without any kind of discrimination. So there are really a lot of resources out there. And of course, if there are, mental health professionals involved, you want to make sure that they know something about bipolar disorder, because not everybody really, not to be truthful, not everybody does. And just ask them how they understand it and what the best way they think about treating it. So I hope that helps.
Great answers. Thank you for sharing those resources. We'll make sure to get those in the chat and the plug for the NAMI walk this October. Cass, thank you for sharing that insight. It's very important to have those lived experiences to relate to. We have another question from an attendee. This one's for Abby, actually. I am so impressed with your journey and your courage to share it. What do you recommend for educating parents? Also, how do you find that horses would help you?
For educating parents, I just really think that they, turn to Google and your child's therapist, figure out what's going on with your child. Don't always brush it under the rug or, oh, they're just depressed, they're fine, because most of the time they're not really fine. Horses, it's a great therapy thing. I don't know. I just find so much comfort in my horse he's always there for me. It's the one animal that's never really judged me, I guess. So there we go.
Wonderful. Great. Do we have any other input from our panel on equine therapy and how that can help students? So we have Beasley's Paws in the room, and although they're not horses, I did want to give a shout out to our therapy dogs that are actually here today.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to, chime in on the use of pets and animals to help with our students' mental health?
Megan, might we have somebody from that organization to talk about that? It would be really great. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, bless your heart. My name is Donna Herbst, and I've been doing therapy dogs, working in therapy dogs for over 14 years, and actually started the Lee County School reading program with the dogs. And I actually got out of dogs because I had some joint problems and couldn't ride horses anymore. So I had big dogs. I had a Newfoundland and a Great Pyrenees. And all of these animals, they give unconditional love. They are non-judgmental. And even as a nurse also, I find that children and people will communicate with the animals before they're going to communicate with another person. They will open up in their own way and over time become more comfortable, because the petting and the being one with the animal is just amazing. Like the young lady that rides, there's a strong bond. And I read with children that were deaf, and you're like, what? Well, yes, I had someone that signed for me, but also they had other problems that affected them, medical problems. And they would just sit quietly, even a classroom with children that had autism, they would just quiet down immediately for the animals. And I think over at your hospital, on and off, you with the children, you've had the therapy dogs come in, and you see the power of healing. I mean, we even go to detox centers. We do every kind of help. You know, courtrooms are taking us in now, everything. So it's really expanded where people can start to function. So.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, go ahead, Chantel.
We just moved to Florida from North Carolina, and my wife was involved with the Lee County Health and was at a session where they had therapy dogs, and we thought Moses would be a good therapy dog. So I registered and got him. And so this is our second visit. So thank you very much.
We're delighted to have you. Thanks for coming.
Speaking of therapy dogs, I turned on the news last night and Golisano's very own Dorian, they had like a special feature on Dorian, not just providing hope and healing to the patients in the hospital, but also for staff. It is a joy going to work every day, just knowing that Dorian will be there, kind of hanging out around my desk, waiting on me to drop some lunch or something, so that he can snag a bite of it. But animals in general are just great. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move into our next few questions here. We have a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Rolling
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
It's wonderful that you're doing this, and there needs to be more of it, really.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This question is for Megan. Megan, how would you say to your fellow peers about seeking mental health support?
Oh, I've actually had to do this quite a bit, as for some reason I seem to find friends a lot that share the similar experiences to me. I guess I attract people that are similar to me, but it's what I do first is I share my experiences with them because a lot of them are mostly hesitant about medication. Unfortunately, a lot of the time it's also parents who are hesitant about getting any kind of mental health treatment, trying to just ignore it and hope it'll go away. It's a matter of one, getting the parent to work with you, and then two, what I do is I try to help. I recommend the places I go to friends, and may I plug in a name? May I plug in names? So I personally do Elite DNA for psychiatry and Center for Psychology for therapy. So I recommend places like that. And then I share my experiences with medication. It's not always 100% immediately going to work. Sometimes medication stops working. But I always urge the ones who do need it to do it because it's worth it. And if they're hesitant about medication, try therapy first. That's what I did. And then it just didn't work. And if therapy doesn't work by itself, add medication, try it. It's a matter of just looking for what's the right combination for you, truly. Because everyone's brain is different. Everyone's brain is built different. Though if you have family, it might work a little similar between you and like a parent. So I say do it especially if you have like the financial ability to, because I recognize that's an issue. And yeah, those places that I mentioned are good.
Thank you so, Megan, you put that beautifully.
Thank
And
you.
really painted the picture of how recovery can be a process, right? And we may hit some dead ends, but there's always help available. You gave some really great practical resources as well. But the most motivating part of your message is really that you just keep going, and it could be a different combination. So thank you for putting that into words for us.
Megan, I just want to echo one thing that you said, which I thought was really brilliant, which is that, many of these disorders these days end up being treated by a combination of medications and psychotherapy. And the outcome literature is clear that that combination produces the best results over and over again. So we've known that for a long time. I think oftentimes people get stuck with an early recommendation for medication. And lots of people are leery for very good reasons. They don't know much about it. There are some side effects that are problematic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think starting with therapy makes the best sense because it's in the context of that therapeutic relationship that people feel more comfortable discussing medications. I've been a practicing psychologist for nearly 40 years, and I've just learned that over time, when I start talking to people about medication, I have to have a relationship with them first. I have to speak to the parts of them that are self-protectively leery and respect that. And oftentimes, it's the development of a therapeutic trusting relationship that allows that conversation to go on in a way that otherwise wouldn't occur, which is, oftentimes it happens in a pediatrician's office or a primary care doctor's office. They're going, a million miles an hour. They don't really spend enough time getting people ready. And so people have a knee-jerk reaction to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So I think it's all about developing the relationship first and then locating that conversation in that comfortable place. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Simeone. Is there something that the school district has or offers that will help parents and families navigate those different appointments?
That's a good question. Thank you. Yes, we do have school-based mental health professionals that parents can absolutely reach out to on an individual basis, which include our school counselors, our school social workers, our school psychologists, and our licensed mental health professionals that work for the Lee County schools. But also we have what we call Wellness Wednesdays for parents. And that is where we do bring in outside experts to discuss some of these things that mental health issues that are challenges that our students are experiencing. And a lot of times our parents and that's why I was so empowered today by everyone when you spoke, when you really truly spoke to the parent and said to them, this is what I need. In fact, that is going to be the topic of our October our Wellness Wednesdays for our parents is really assisting our parents in supporting their students and their children, because we've had different topics on anxiety, on depression, and what that looks like in your student. But what we often hear from our parents during those sessions is, what can I do? How can I support my child? Because as a parent, that's what we do. And so I was really, really impressed. And I was so excited to hear all of you talk about the roles that your parents played in your journey. And that is such an important role that parents play. And so those are some of the supports that we not only provide to our students, but we can also support their parents as well.
Thank you, Sherry.
I'd like to add something to that. I know you spoke specifically to the school district, but through Kids Minds Matter, Golisano Children's Hospital offers a variety of parenting classes on dignified discipline, nurturing parenting group. We have our weekly parent support group. And basically what we try to do through those classes and those support groups is help parents understand their child's diagnosis, talk through some of those tough times, some of those behaviors. We have Richard Keelan, my supervisor, who is just an excellent clinician overall. And he comes in and provides information for parents seeking help understanding IEPs and 504s and what options are available to them throughout the system. So just plugging that in there, leehealth.org/classes.
Wonderful. Some really great resources for our parents, which is a perfect segue to our next question. which was kind of answered actually in some of your answers. But what can an adult say or do for an older teen who is scared to get help because they don't want to be diagnosed and they do not want to take medication? There is a history of mental illness and medication abuse in the family?
So personally, I can understand that because my family has never really been big about medication, more natural stuff like that, a little bit hippie, you know. um, but medication can be a great tool. Therapy can be a great tool, and I understand not wanting to be diagnosed because then it makes it real. It makes it part of who you are, which necessarily doesn't always feel like a good thing. You don't want to be represented by anxiety, depression, bipolar depression, whatever it is. You don't want that to be who you are, but it's not. It's part of who you are, but that's not who you are, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, I know it can be very scary, but as I said in my speech, getting a good support system, educating yourself, having your family educate themselves can be a great tool to figure out the path that you want to take. And medication doesn't necessarily always have to be the only option. Many people thrive on solely therapy and stuff like that. So, even though medication and therapy can be a great tool when put together, it doesn't have to be that way for you. I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing medication without therapy, just personally for myself, because combination works better most of the time. But if you are uncomfortable doing medication, which is totally understandable, especially if you have family members with a past of drug abuse or anything like that, therapy, just starting with therapy is great. And if you're afraid to start therapy, it's okay, because I understand. I absolutely hated therapy before I found the right therapist. It can be scary and you can be untrusting. You're talking to a total stranger about very vulnerable things, but you have to understand that that person is there only to help you. And once you find that right person, it can be an amazing tool with medication or without it. So honestly, if you just keep an open mind and give it a try, you could find that it could be really beneficial for you, combination or just therapy.
Wonderful, great. And did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'd
Or
just
some
like to
idea?
add on a little bit on the whole diagnosis is just a part of you thing. I've always thought of diagnoses as just a way to inform you of why you are the way you are and why you're acting the way you are, so that you can arm yourself with the tools to properly combat any of the negative effects of it, and also learn about how to utilize the positive effects properly.
That was beautifully put, Megan. Thank you.
Megan, I just want to say something. I was going to say something similar about diagnosis. I think in behavioral health, psychiatry, clinical psychology, there's too much emphasis on diagnosis because nobody wants to be labeled by anything, frankly. I mean, we've heard a lot of things today about how important not only to tell your story, but to have it accepted as your story. And diagnosis often cuts right into that because it's not experienced as part of your story, right? So I when I was practicing in Boston, I saw lots of adolescents I loved seeing adolescents. And what I would say to them is I couldn't care less about the diagnosis. I'll tell you what I think is going on, and if you want to line it up with a diagnosis, it's okay with me, but that's not going to drive anything. And then the other thing, just in terms of how to talk with people about this, I always start with what's important to them. It's not about what's important to me. It's important so about people to often talk about motivational interviewing, which is really just a technique to suss out with people what's important to them and what they're motivated to do on their own behalf, not for somebody else. And so I think if you start the conversation there in the most respectful way, taking into consideration what people bring to the table, I haven't had a lot of trouble with that conversation for the most part. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
And it sounds like the Wellness Wednesdays the parent talks that you were speaking to earlier, Sherry, would be a great forum for parents to come and ask questions on how to speak to their young adult that may be struggling.
Absolutely. And that's one of the goals of Wellness Wednesdays for parents, is to educate them and to support them.
Wonderful. So, education sounds really to be the key to getting that stigma away from having these conversations. So we hope to see some of our participants at these wonderful talks that are going on through Lee Health and the Lee County School District, Kids Minds Matter. We do have another question around, and this one's actually for Kelly. How do you overcome your thoughts about body image when you said you were struggling with the way that you saw yourself? How did you overcome that?
To be honest, body image is still a big issue for myself. I think, as I talked about in my speech, healing is a huge process and it's not something that really just goes away. A lot of the struggles I shared, I still struggle with today. I think it's more about accepting that you have those struggles and really like being okay with asking for help and being okay with not being okay. Um, like specifically regarding body image, I think one particular self-care that I've actually started is just putting lotion on my legs, which sounds like maybe a little strange, but as I do that, I actually say positive affirmations to myself because for so long with the trauma I went through, I really just neglected my body, didn't pay attention to it. And so that's like a huge step for me is just learning to validate and accept like my body for what it is. But like I said, healing is definitely still a process and something I'm working through.
Great. That was a really great example of self-care and mixing that positive affirmation in with that. Thank you for sharing that, Kelly. So how can teachers be more supportive? And I guess, so this would be more for our speakers today. What do you want to see from our teachers? How can they be more supportive? Would you say looking out for mental health struggles like these begin in middle school? When did these begin for you?
Hi. So teachers can really help by being more supportive by like again, as said in one of the speeches, understanding we have a life outside of school too. They can't like me with my Tourette's. I'd make noises and they thought I'd like be distracting and trying to distract kids. Try to understand what your peers and students are going through because it's not all black and white all the time. They might be struggling with something that you don't know, like they don't turn in their homework. They could be depressed or have a bad home life. You don't know what's going on in their personal life. And you just really have to be open-minded about what could be going on outside of school.
Just to add on that, I talked a bit in my speech about what teachers and school staff can do. I think honestly, it's just important to look at your students as people because that's what they are. They are not just your project or your job. They are people with real feelings, real emotions, and real struggles, just like you guys have, like all you teachers have. And there's been times where teachers will have like mental breakdowns in class and they'll cry and they'll have a bad day. And the students are so understanding and they try to help and they try to comfort and they try to understand that teachers have bad days. Like just because they're adults doesn't mean that they are perfect 100% of the time. No one is. So I think it's just important for teachers to give students that same respect and understanding because we are people too. We have bad days as well. And as I said in my speech, kids don't have the skill sets like adults do. Children, especially young ones, they don't know how to express their emotions, which is for me, especially a lot of the reason why I was the problem child. I struggled a lot. I was a real pain to my parents most of the time, but mostly because I didn't know how to express how I was feeling. So if you try to just educate yourself as teachers and even parents too, if you just try to be more understanding, educate yourself on different mental health issues and disorders and anything like that, and understand that we have a life outside of school. We have our own struggles, just like you, but we're not as equipped to handle them as you are. So that's why it seemed worse with us than it might with you.
Thank you for that. And when it comes to teacher education and mental health, Sherry, did you want to share a little bit about what that looks like?
Is that yes, absolutely. And I think I just want to say, what you say is absolutely, we want to support that. And everybody goes on a journey. And you're right, you guys are on a journey, and also the teachers and the staff and the school personnel. We all have our own journeys, hopefully outside of the school environment. And that's really important. And we as a district have really started focusing on educating not just our teachers, but all of our school-based staff, whether it's custodians, bus drivers, administrators, cafeteria workers. We want them to have a better understanding of not only the struggles that you go through, but have some insight about their own struggles and their own journey. And we do that through education. We offer youth mental health first aid training to all of our staff. And we've probably trained over 4,000 of our staff right now in that, and not only recognizing students and children who are having mental health struggles, but what to do with that. Because believe it or not, our teachers are there, they're teachers, they're there to make sure that you have an education. And just like mental health kind of has a stigma or is kind of scary for you when you're experiencing it, and for parents as they're witnessing it in their children, it's kind of scary for our teachers too. And it's scary for our administrators because they want to help you, but they don't know what to do. So we really are in a process of educating our staff on what that is, how to recognize it, and how to support you as students better.
Thank you for speaking to any of our.
Can I just add something now real
Yeah,
quick?
absolutely. Go ahead.
I believe that that's really good. Like that teachers are being taught how to deal with it better, because when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's not in the job description, but as a teacher, when you sign up to do that, you sign up to meet all kinds of people, all like from many walks of life, different experiences, kids that have gone through things. And, even the teacher comes alone with their own story and their own problems. So also at the same time, while educating the teachers, we also have to have the patience with the teachers and understand that, maybe they don't understand it and they were brought up differently to believe other things.
That's right. Thank you. And that's a very good point. And like I said, and you're very well aware, we all come to the table with our own experiences, and how we interact with each other is based on the experiences that we've had. And so it's just learning to support ourselves and each other within the educational system. And like I said, it's a journey, and it's where we're working very hard to work with everybody to make sure that everybody feels supported, because this, especially now during the pandemic, and I really, really do want to say that I appreciate those that shared their story about the distance learning and the impact it had on them, because I want to share too that, a lot of that happened also within our staff members. So some of the same feelings that you were feeling during distance learning, we were hearing a lot of that from our staff members as well as in the teachers. So we're kind of entering this area where nobody knows what to expect. So we're all working together. And I think that's important, that we continue to reevaluate, step back, see what works, see what doesn't, and try again. It's just like anything else. But what we want everybody to know is that we are here to support our students and our staff to make that journey be successful for everybody.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Cass. And as a youth mental health first aid facilitator, actually, I can speak to the effectiveness and what a great program that is. So if you are on the call today and you are interested in getting certified in youth mental health first aid, which is an 8-hour course, any parent, teacher, anyone can take it. I believe courses are offered through Kids Minds Matter. Is that correct, Chantel?
Yes, I believe that course is valued at around $170, and we offer that for free. Again, leehealth.org/classes. We offer mental health first aid, and we also offer the youth module. We also offer it in Spanish. So take advantage of that, because you will receive a 3-year certification that you can take anywhere. It is an outstanding class. Even people that work in the area of mental health, they walk away from that class and say, wow, I didn't look at it this way, or I didn't consider this. And one of the things we talk about is language, and how language it can contribute to the stigma that is surrounding mental illness. So yes, $170 course, absolutely free through Kids Minds Matter.
So I took the youth mental health first aid and mental health first aid with Kids Minds Matter. It's an amazing course. Also, any youth are allowed to take that as well. So high schoolers, middle schoolers, I think. Definitely take the course. It's worth it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Well, at this time, we have a lot of questions rolling in virtually, but today we actually have a small audience in the room of supporters, and we want to open it up to the room here today for anyone that may have questions.
Thank you. I'm curious about your class. Is that sorry, he wants to go visit and do his job. Is that an online class or is that in person?
At this time, we are offering it online primarily because of the rise in COVID cases, but we
Correct.
do offer that in person as well, but at this time, just virtually.
Actually, it would be better for me online so I can incorporate that into my therapy dog volunteering as well as my work as a nurse. So it's a win-win.
There it is.
Thank you.
With being on this panel, I think that why does Lee County see it as an option for teachers to go through mental health training instead of a mandatory mental health training?
It's not an option to go through it. It is mandated by the Department of Education at the state level that all of our staff members be trained in youth mental health first aid. We just have a lot of staff. So it takes a little while to get through all of them, but we are slowly working towards getting all of our staff, which is required by law, to be trained in youth mental health first
What
aid.
percentage is Lee County at now?
I cannot tell you right at this very moment. I apologize for that. I don't have that statistic right in the top of my head, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
Hi, thank you very much for being here today. Quick question, are we rolling out some of this for the younger students? As we've heard from a lot of the speakers today, a lot of this happened when they were very young and they didn't have the words or the capabilities to express it. So a lot of these programs, it sounds like it's more for middle school, high school. Is this something that's going to be rolled out so that when students come into Lee County and through, the hospital and other Kids Minds Matter, will there be access for younger children so that this will avoid, not necessarily avoid, but it will just be normal to have access to this from a young age for those who need it?
That is a really good question. And thank you for asking that, because that's just what I was talking about earlier, is within our schools, we do have our social emotional learning that we provide. It starts in elementary school. It starts with teaching our students how to ask and how to talk and to identify those feelings, because like they said earlier, when they were younger, they didn't even know what it was. They didn't know what that feeling was and they couldn't verbalize it. So we really do have a curriculum that starts in our elementary schools there, where we teach and we support our students in identifying those feelings and being comfortable talking about it. Because a lot of what was shared today is that there is, that stigma, but we are really working, starting in the elementary schools, to kind of educate our children on the importance of identifying and talking about those feelings and knowing what to do with some of those big feelings. And when I work with young children, I always say, they don't know how to verbalize those big feelings. They don't know what it comes out in different ways. It can come out in anger. It can come out in physical aggression, verbal aggression, or withdrawal. It can go either way. And so it's really important that we educate and support our youngest children in learning that it's okay to say, I'm mad right now, or I'm sad right now. And what does that mean? Because sometimes when you work with those younger children, they don't even know what that means. They know what sad is, but they can't really recognize it in themselves. So we are really working across the curriculum, and we are implementing that within our schools. I hope that answered your question.
Just to add on that, not necessarily for Lee's schools and stuff like that, but for parents, I babysit specifically two wonderful little girls whom I love dearly. And, kids, especially parents, there's a lot you can do too for your young children. Normalize, talking about your feelings and validate their feelings. If they're upset, it's not always the best idea to put them in a timeout. Talk to them like they're a normal human being, because children are a lot smarter and a lot more aware than you think they are. So if your child is mad and they're screaming and they're yelling, if you just put them in timeout, that's not doing any good. You sit them down, you talk and be like, hey, can we try using our words and talking about what's making you upset right now? Validate their feelings, come up with a solution that works for both of you instead of ignoring it because it's an inconvenience to you. You have to support your children from a very, very young age, because there could be a lot going on in their head that you're unaware of, especially since young children aren't the best at expressing their feelings. So when you are able to validate their feelings and work with them instead of with yourself only, it can be a huge step into normalizing mental health support within young children, along with what will be going on or what is going on in schools and stuff like that. So when you reinforce those things at home, it can just create such a positive space for them to feel comfortable enough to talk to you. Because I know when I was younger, I was so afraid to talk to my parents about how I was feeling because I didn't want to be an inconvenience. Because, a lot of the times parents will put you in timeout, or they won't want to deal with you and they're just sick of you crying and they're sick of you just being a pain, which kids are. I mean, they are, but they can't help that. They can't have a different personality for social situations. They are who they are. So when you're able to support them at home along with in school, it creates such a great positive area for them to be in mentally and physically. And it normalizes, being okay with talking about your feelings and not always being okay, as Abby said, which I love that motto. So just again, the support, understanding, and just trying, doing the research, and parents and teachers, school, there's already great programs going on with schools, but you have to do your part at home as well.
Hi, can I just add a little bit? I think it's great that they're making programs and starting to educate younger children about different mental health and how they're feeling. Because I remember when I was little, I didn't know why I didn't have friends. I didn't know why people didn't like me. I didn't know why teachers always thought I was such a problem and would send me to other classrooms because I was just being myself. I was just trying to be little 5-year-old me, and people were always so angry and didn't want to ever cooperate with me. I think it's really important to really stress to younger people that it's okay to have accommodations, and not everyone is the same. We all have different problems. We're just trying to have a good time.
Great answers, everybody. Thank you for your questions and for being here today. I do want to make a correction too. We are talking a lot about parents and educating parents, but what we really mean is parents and caregivers. So thank you, Kristen, actually, for pointing that out today, because some students have guardians and other caregivers who nurture their growth as opposed to parents. So thank you for that shout out to all the caregivers out there who engage. Moving into some of our other questions here. This event is a great opportunity to reduce stigma about this sensitive topic. What else can we do as a community to go beyond today to keep this conversation going?
Well, so this annual event inspired a weekly group that many of our students participate in. How many of you have participated in our Tuesday night class, Kelly? Yeah, so every Tuesday from 5:45 p.m. till 7 p.m., we meet in person at the Quality Life Center of Southwest Florida. If you cannot meet in person, we also offer that virtually. We send out a Zoom link. And you can connect to that Tuesday night group. And what that is basically for students to come together to support each other. They are students who identify as having mental health challenges. They get a free meal when they come to the Quality Life Center, and it is pretty good. But it is a time for just students to come together, support one another, talk about what's important to them, and to keep the youth voice uplifted in the system of care. Continuously saying, we are here, we want to tell our stories, we want to share, we want to educate people. Dominique had a great idea to partner with the school system and just trying to educate parents and staff on the process of being hospitalized through the Baker Act, because that is something people really don't understand. So that is just one of the many ideas that comes from this group. It is a newer group, and we're looking for more students to join that group.
Just to add, since I do attend quite a few of the meetings, I was actually told about the meetings by Carly, the lovely woman who started this event. And the first time I went to it, I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be kind of cheesy. I'm gonna leave here like more depressed than I came because it's gonna be all about all the crappy stuff we go through. But it's actually a really uplifting group. And like when I talked about in my speech, how students will thrive in a more communication-based environment concerning mental health. And the meetings are a perfect example of that, because I always feel so much better leaving the meetings than going into them, because I'm able to express myself and relate to people around my age, people that I can relate to and people that I know support me. And I know a lot of kids they don't want to talk about it because they're worried about getting judged. But this group is so supportive. The people that attended, Chantel, Deb, everyone, Dominique, everyone is so supportive and so kind. And it's definitely just a great thing to just be a part of. And I know that me and Cass really love it. And it's a great way to connect with people and understand more and kind of get more insight outside of yourself, because I know I learned a lot about mental health once I started going to the meetings, simply because it just wasn't a topic introduced to me as much outside of my own experience with it. So it can definitely also be an opportunity for education if you don't necessarily struggle with mental health issues. If you're a student and you want to be able to be more supportive or understand more what your peers might be going through, it's definitely a great thing to go to. And it's a great thing. And the food is really good.
That's great.
I can attest to the food. It's good.
If I may add a little more onto that, I was also thinking about a little bit, taking a bit from what you said with the parents working with smaller children in normalizing like emotion, like speaking about emotion. And I try to apply that also myself to my everyday life in being more honest and open, and just if someone judges me, that's their problem. So I'm going to be honest and open about how I'm feeling and what I'm struggling with. If I miss, for example, band practice because I'm on the verge of a breakdown, I let my friends know, hey, I'm going to cry if I go to band practice today. I'm going home. I let people know how, if someone asks how I'm doing and I'm not doing good, I say, I'm tired, I'm not feeling good. Because we've had this kind of like forced like happiness. And our generation has honestly kind of done a better job, even if maybe sometimes we go a little too far in the other direction. And we need to normalize not being not okay and being open about it is the particular thing. Being honest about it, because if you hide it, no one's going to know what's going on unless you speak about it. And if not, you just seem like it just creates a disconnect, and it helps just reinforce this isolation that a lot of people with like depression, anxiety, and stuff experience.
Megan, could I just jump in just for a second? I just want to remind people that cultural change, any kind of cultural change, is glacial. It doesn't happen in miles, it happens in inches. And if you don't believe that, then look at the civil rights movement, look at the feminist movement, look at the LGBTQ community movement. The latest challenge there is the trans community. Many of you know that it's dangerous these days to be trans. the murder rates among trans men in particular are the highest in the country. So it tells you we have a ways to go. So what I would say about that is that those of us who are adults in the culture, we have a particular responsibility to help the younger generations come along. I know this firsthand because I give a lot of talks in the community, and I'm want to talk about things plainly and without sort of sugarcoating it. And I don't always get a great reception. And yet I feel like it's my ethical responsibility to talk plainly about what the mental health landscape looks like these days. Because if you can't turn and face the problem, you can't fix it. And so this is a special kind of invitation and ask, I guess, of the adults, both listening and in the room, to take responsibility for advancing a more progressive social agenda, at least in terms of these issues. Because I think that's what these kids are doing today. They need the help.
I just want to chime in really quick on the question asking about stigma and reiterating what everyone said here. It really comes down to two elements of smashing the stigma, and I think that's education and storytelling. What we all did today was share our stories to help break that stigma and smash those barriers down that we can't talk about mental health. And then also all the statistics. So all the statistics you see out here today, like educating, leaving here and sharing with others, like the prevalence and how much of an issue this is.
Just to add on really quick, I think another big element of that is acceptance. I know a lot of people in the older generation tend to ignore mental health and mental health awareness, mostly just because it wasn't part of their generation. It was never a topic discussed, and it was never an issue discussed. So when parents, grandparents, anyone, or guardians, whatever, if you take the time to just sit down and be like, yeah, this is a thing and it needs to be addressed, that's already taking a huge step forward, because just accepting that it's something that needs to be changed is already working towards change.
Just a little quick. Yeah, all that being said, that was really good. And the way that I know we for sure can carry this like out and keep talking about it is to leave here and talk about it, and to make it something that isn't so hush hush or taboo to talk about. Like, we don't talk to each other as an adult therapist or professional talking to a child who struggles. We talk as people. We talk and we give each other advice, and we accept each other, and we communicate. And that's the biggest part. It's communication and carrying it out and not being afraid to carry that out.
Thank you. And you know what? We'll actually piggyback off of that and let everybody know that this is being recorded today. And we really hope that you share it and you help us share the message of our wonderful students and our panelists today. It really continue this dialogue through sharing these normal is overrated conversations. And we are looking into a podcast. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Deb.
You're such a compelling person, Deb. Absolutely. That's right.
If only more of the younger generation actually listened to podcasts.
Listen, my verbal memory is
I
terrible.
think
I'll
more,
forget half of it.
I think more of the younger generation would listen to podcasts if it was put on by younger people. They don't want to hear me. Kids don't want to hear me talk about anything, but they will hear their peers talk. Oh, let me tune in to hear Cass and Zoe. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. So, and I see people in the chat saying a podcast. Yes. So it looks like that may be in the future. And this is a pretty practical question. Do we have a flyer that we can put in classrooms? A teacher is actually asking.
Yes, in Lee County Schools, we do have a Google Classroom that we put together at the beginning of the year that talks about trauma and resiliency and mental health. We put together a training that was viewed and showed at all of our schools. And in that Google Classroom, there's actually a how-to kind of one pager that we call them. And it talks about how to respond to students who have experienced trauma and mental health and what you can do as a classroom teacher. So if that person happens to be in Lee County, they can go into that Google Classroom and print that out.
Thank you. And actually, they are a charter teacher. So for charter teachers, and we are looking for more geared towards the contact information for these students and how to get involved in Fort Myers Progress Panel. Is there a flyer that we can send out to some of the charter teachers or any of the Lee County school teachers?
So actually Dominique and Grace, I believe, created a flyer for the weekly group. And we're all kind of connected. So if you reach out to anyone about anything, the Fort Myers Progress Panel, you can pretty much be easily linked to the whole setup, the whole Kids Minds Matter and everything that we offer. I'm connected to Sherry, so it's just one email or a text message away. But that we can get that email, that flyer for the weekly group. Can we get that redistributed to teachers?
Absolutely. I would be more than happy to email it to you, and it's, you know, it's, I think it's really good. It's a real good, what we call pictogram. So
Just real quick, there is an Instagram that you can go through. I'm sure someone can put it in the chat. It's Fort Myers Progress Panel on Instagram, which I believe Dominique and Grace run, which you can reach out to them on that and get connected to stuff. I believe all of us also follow it. So if you just search up our name and followed, you can reach out to any of us as well, and we'd be happy to talk to you about it. But it's very widely accessible. So if you just dig a little bit, you can find it and reach out.
Yes, I just want to add, we do have an Instagram, like Zoe said. We also have a Facebook and a website. You can just search up www.info.fortmyersprogresspanel.com. Will come up, and our email is on there. So if you have any more questions, just feel free to email us and we can get you the resources that you need. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we are definitely going to try and get some of these resources in the chat out to you shortly here. Abby, were you able to let your teachers and students know that you suffer from Tourette's? If so, how?
Yeah, kinda. I remember when I was really little, like first or second grade, my mom actually came to the school and she was like, "Hey, it's not cool that you're bullying my kid. She has Tourette's." And she kind of explained what it was. But, as I got older, I'd try to explain to the teachers what's going on, and they really wouldn't understand, or they'd think I'm lying and just making it up to like get out of class, or because, sometimes I'd have a really bad attack coming on and I need to step out, and they're like, "Oh no, you don't really have Tourette's. You're lying." But, when I got to some of the worst ones where like I'd bang my knees together so hard, I had bruises going up and down my legs, or like the ones that are super noticeable, they either thought I was just really annoying, or they were like, "Oh, I guess this kid is for real." Who would have thought? But kids, even if they know what you have, they still don't really accept it. Like I used to wink at people and people would always be like, "Why are you winking at me?" I'm like, "I'm sorry." But kids and teachers, they judge a lot, but you get that one teacher that's really understanding and can kind of help you throughout the day. Like they help you with your accommodations and they ask you how you're doing. And if you need to step out, they let you step out. So it's just really important to focus on the people who do understand and don't like mock and make fun of you. You really need to focus on that instead of the kids that are still making fun of you and teachers who still think you're faking it.
What a courageous and challenging story that you have. Thank you so much for sharing that and inspiring ways we can communicate and really painting the picture of what that feels like when you feel often misunderstood by your peers, by your mentors and your friends. Now, we do have somebody in the chat that spoke to, as a parent, dealing with a child with mental health issues. them also having mental health challenges and not knowing where to go to navigate their own mental health challenges so that they could better lead the way for their children. Dr. Simeone, is there any resources that we have here in Lee County, like Healthy Minds, so to say, that you'd like to speak to?
Well, Healthy Minds, as was said earlier, was an initiative that we set up at the beginning of COVID, really to reach out to the community, to do free behavioral health screenings, to provide resources in the form of a resiliency toolkit and referral through United Way 211. So that person can get on, just speaking to you directly, you can get on the Healthy Minds website and you can download both the resiliency toolkits. There's a lot of resources in there. And there's also a screener for depression, anxiety, and substance abuse, which you can take online. And if you want to discuss that with anybody, especially me, I'd be happy to do that. So in terms of getting help for yourself, there are a number of places to go. We at Lee Health have an outpatient behavioral health clinic that people can come to. Elite DNA has been mentioned already. And if you want access maybe to free behavioral health services, you might call United Way 211, because the last time I checked, Catholic Charities was providing free psychotherapy. And so those are just a few resources that you can start with. And my guess is that you'll find what you're looking for. Hope that helps.
That's perfect. We have one last question, and then that will conclude our question and answers portion of today's event. All of our panel speakers today talked about their journey towards healing, and you spoke about pivotal events in those journeys, moments where you realized you needed to seek help. What was your most important part? What was the most important first step for you in seeking help?
Specifically for me, the most important first step of seeking help is acknowledging that you need it and that it's okay to ask for help. Because personally, me, my dad, my mom, we like to do things on our own. We like to be self-sufficient. We like to handle things ourselves and not bug other people. But mental health is not something that you can necessarily be self-sufficient for. It's okay to ask for help. And once you realize that maybe, this is a bit too much for me to try and handle on my own, you can, you can ask yourself, what do I need to take a step forward into the healing process? Because it is a process, especially even for parents too, like understanding and helping your child heal is going to be really difficult for you. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is total hell. And props to all of the parents that are there to support their children. You are absolutely amazing. And all your kids are so grateful for you, even if they don't show it. But yeah, definitely just accepting and realizing that you actually need help was a really difficult part of the healing process, because you want to pretend you're okay and you want to pretend that things will magically get better, but they don't. You sometimes need therapy, you sometimes need medicine, and you definitely need support. So yeah.
And you said it earlier, you'll feel better when walking out than you did going in. So kind of reiterating that message.
Yes, it is terrifying to acknowledge that you need help and you need to make a change. It is absolutely terrifying, and it is stressful and it's overwhelming, but eventually you're going to be better for it and stronger from it, and you will be altogether a more full person, like mentally and physically. You will feel better about yourself. You will be able to realize that I can get through this. I am a strong person and I am able to do whatever I set my mind to do. So you just kind of need to focus on that. And, like the affirmations, be proud of yourself for trying, even if no one else is.
If I may add on to that, it's interesting because in my case, my first step was actually my doctor sending me to go see a mental, I think it was like a psychologist or something, to go get diagnosed.
do screenings. After I had a breakdown discussing my weight, that was fun. But it wasn't really acknowledging that I needed help. That was the biggest part for me. It was acknowledging that I actually do have a problem and that it's not just me attention seeking. Because I truly felt in the the week before receiving my diagnoses at first, and even before my ADHD diagnoses, I kept on worrying, oh, what if I'm just being an attention seeker and I just want all these problems so that people feel bad for me, or so that I have these excuses for how lazy I am. We have a lot of these issues with kids who do sometimes think of the wrong things. It's typically not attention seeking though. It's typically not. It's for the most part, it's not. And if it is a kid attention seeking, then they do have problems as well. It just might not be those.
Right. They say that if somebody seems like they're attention seeking, well, maybe we should give them that attention.
Yeah. And it's also better to give the benefit of the doubt first, either way, especially with ourselves. But it was really, that was the biggest step. And also changing my thought process on my view on myself was the biggest part. And I engage in a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy to do that, because we don't recognize how much the repetition of the same phrases against ourselves, like, oh, I'm stupid. Oh, I'm just a joke or something like that. Repeating that over and over again is going to make you believe that. You need to speak kindly about yourself, or else you're not going to believe kind things about yourself.
Thank you, Megan. Cass, did you want to add to that?
Indeed. I believe that the first step isn't always forward. Like maybe, the way I've only recently started healing, and the way I had to see it was, instead of pushing all these emotions away and denying them and deciding to just not feel them, I had to take a few steps back and kind of sit in them and accept them and understand that they're real. And without noticing them, you can't get better if you don't want to, if you're in denial of things. So once you take that step back and you see that these are real, then you can get up and take the step forward, because it's not going to work if you're not accepting.
Thank you. And for anyone that's still in the room today, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking questions. And if you have any more questions that come up after this event, you can email the Fort Myers Progress Panel. I know we dropped you're out of my line of sight over there. So we have one more question.
So I just kind of want to add, I know for me personally, it took me hitting absolute rock bottom for me to realize I kind of needed help. Like, I had no friends. I went completely selectively mute. I only ate once a week. I dropped 40 pounds. Life was miserable, and I didn't really know I needed help till I kind of told my mom about it, and she was like, "Hey, that's not normal." I was like, "Oh." And it's okay if you're not ready to heal yet. Like, even today I still struggle with things. Like earlier today, for example, I was having my mom hype me up so I can go sit next to Megan because I need friends. But it's okay if you're not ready to heal yet. You have to give yourself time,
Abby, I will totally be friends with you. Me too. Friend group.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes our question and answer panel portion of the event. We will have a couple of closing remarks from Dr. Simeone before we close out today.
Well, thanks. And thanks everybody for participating in this. Thanks to those of you who are watching at home. I often wonder what I should be saying at the end of something like this. And I've been thinking for the whole morning. There's a line from one of Bruce Springsteen's early songs that says, "And the poets down there don't write nothing at all. They just stand back and let it all be." And so I don't think I need to say a whole lot more, except thank you to everybody. Thank you to Carly and Domini and Grace for all that you've done. Thank you to our students. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everybody who put this together. really, we have to just keep on keeping on. It's all about doing what we can to reduce mental health discrimination, raising awareness, helping people get to a place that is going to help them live and suffer less. So thanks everybody again for being here. It's been wonderful. Be well, everybody.